Hello and welcome back to HiKeiLoKei University. If you're a first-year student, this is a school where we teach one class, and it's Intro to Burglary. Our regular teacher is out today, so instead this class will be led by the wildly popular 2013 movie, Swindle. I let you guys choose the last 5 videos, this one's for me. That one doesn't count, it got claimed. For some reason, there is no Nickelodeon movie I love more than this one. Maybe because Jeanette McCurdy is involved and I'm partial to her because she's beautiful and literally perfect. Swindle is based on a book that came out 3 years prior that was written by Gordon Corman, the plot of which is largely the same, so I don't intend to read an entire book, so my video about a movie that came out 10 years ago will be 1 minute longer. But I will mention that the book did get 3 sequels that I'm aware of, so it's a shame that this movie didn't get a sequel. It's pretty surprising because the movie pulled in 4.2 million viewers on its release date of August 24th, 2013. I'm not actually sure how accurate those numbers are because the only source that Wikipedia has for this is the Blu-ray page for Amazon. And before you say I didn't try to look it up anywhere else, I went to both the 3rd page of Google and used the Wayback Machine to look at TV by the numbers from 2013, and I found nothing. Okay, hold on, pause a second. Why is the Blu-ray for this movie $100? Like, yeah, sure, it's rare, but it's also f***ing Swindle. I get that supply is low, but I guarantee you the demand is lower. Hold on, I'm gonna open my holy shit, it's dark in here. It's wintertime in Massachusetts, so the lighting is gonna be the wintertime in Massachusetts. The reviews for this movie were pretty okay, nothing too shocking. So once again, it's pretty surprising that this movie never managed to get a sequel considering it had 4 books worth of lore to work with. There is a fan-made wiki page, and I just know that they've been pushing the release date back for this movie 1 year at a time since 2013. Either way, we spent long enough talking about what could have been, when we're here to focus on what was. Let's finally watch the movie that owned my childhood and stole my heart, Swindle. Alright guys, please don't be mad at me, but Swindle does open up with a I bet you're wondering how we got here scenario. Quite literally the only movie I've ever cared for this happening in was Megamind, but I'm a sucker for the group shot and how our main character walks through the chaos without being touched by a single bit of wedding cake. It's not as cool as I'm acting like it is, but nostalgia is the only thing more powerful than ketamine, and I can't get my hands on any of that right now, so just bear with me. This is Griffin Bing, played by Noah Crawford. Griffin is the main character, the brains, the narrator, and the guy that Nickelodeon tried to convince everyone was hot when in reality, he's just a white boy with moderately fluffy brown hair. Back at the start, we see that Griffin is the cool kid on campus and he makes things happen. He gets the girls, chemistry test answers, the football playbook for another high school, and a copy of a video game that doesn't come out until September. And before you say that this isn't possible, that's because you're thinking that he did all of this legally. The only thing that Griffin can't do is get this guy laid by Ariana Grande. So you're telling me that you can get this guy a copy of an unfinished video game, but you can't give this guy a joke book? If Pete Davidson pulled her, looks are not what matters here, man. This is Darren, played by Noah Monk. Darren is currently in the middle of physically assaulting this dweeb until he's called off by Griffin, where Griffin exchanges his freedom for his daily order of seemingly illicit drugs. Sorry, last time I'm gonna talk about the lighting. It's 4 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock. I don't know if it looks like nearly as dark on camera as it does in my room. What the f? After Darren departs, we meet Griffin's best friend, Ben, played by Chris O'Neill. Ben is a bit of a loser and a lot of a pushover. The only person that Ben is less of a nerd than is his dad. Ben's dad is a less than successful inventor whose inability to make a sale might force the Dupree family to move to Montana. You know, until this exact moment, I forgot Montana even existed. It's not a joke. Leave a comment if you live in Montana. Oh wait, you can't because Montana isn't real. Ben's dad has made a slew of broken inventions, but he claims he has finally made the one that will get his family out of poverty when he bursts into the room with his newest creation, the I Got It, a hyper-advanced version of the Ultra Hand. Mr. Dupree plans to enter his machine into the Snake Pit. The Snake Pit is the version of Shark Tank that isn't trademarked. I'm 100% serious, it's just the Shark Tank. But while excitedly explaining his plans to Ben and Griffin, he accidentally punches a hole in a wall like a 13-year-old white kid named Kevin. The real kicker here is the hole in the wall will cost about as much to fix as the entry fee into the Shark Tank. So with his head hung low, he goes off to the hardware store while Ben and Griffin stay behind to clean up the mess. Good thing it hit the wall and not his wife standing directly behind it, because if it hit her, she'd probably be dead. He's using this technology for the wrong reasons. Sell this to construction companies or the US military, and you're golden. While cleaning up the leftover drywall and shame, Ben finds an old tin container left behind by the previous house owner. The contents are limited to a pair of old spectacles and a baseball card of a player named Honus Wagner. In case you're curious, yes, Honus Wagner is a real baseball player, and yes, the cards are extremely rare, with an estimated 60 of them left in the world. Unfortunately, Griffin and Ben don't know this. Griffin does figure the card is worth something though, and he knows a guy he can sell it to so that he can get Mr. Dupree's snake pit deposit back. Ben figures they should take the time and search up how much the card is worth before leaving, but Griffin figures there's no time, and they run off to the shop. This is the year 2013. People would be casually walking around with iPhone 5s in their pocket at this point. You can't tell me that Griffin didn't have 5 seconds to Google that shit. But you'll soon see that if he did, the movie would be about a total of 8 minutes long, so just suspend your disbelief for now. After arriving at the store, we're introduced to the titular Mr. Swindle, played by Fred Ewenick. Okay, well his name is actually Swindle Palomino, but everyone just calls him Swindle. That was your first mistake, trying to sell a baseball card to a guy whose name is one letter off the word that means to deceive. Swindle initially tries to take the card for a measly $10, but after some pro-grade bartering, Griffin manages to sell the card for $350, which is enough to cover Mr. Dupree's entry fee, and they'll have $50 left over for a singular cup of Starbucks coffee. Though the next morning, Griffin reads the newspaper and realizes that he ended up pulling the short end of the stick, as Swindle has made front page for his rare find. Griffin comes to warn Ben to not look at the TV or read the newspaper, but he's much too late and finds out he's been officially swindled. They go to confront Swindle about his dissatisfactory business practices, but he pretty much tells them, "F you, black bitch," gives Ben a mint, and then kicks them out. But Griffin refuses to go down without a fight and begins his plot to steal back the card from Swindle. The first member of the heist team he scouts is Savannah, played by Jeanette McCurdy, a talented and extravagant actress who supposedly owes Griffin a favor. The next character Griffin wants to recruit is Darren. Darren is the love child of Billy Butcher and Hercules, giving him incredible strength that is only outmatched by his swagger, attitude, and Colombian cigar addiction. Griffin says that Darren will have no choice but to join the team, as Darren also owes him a favor. In return for Griffin picking Darren, Ben says he gets to choose the next member. So Ben chooses none other than the hottest girl in school, their words not mine, Amanda Benson, played by Ariana Grande. Although it seems like Ben chooses Amanda purely because she's hot and Italian, he actually chooses her because of her impressive gymnastic abilities. Oh, and you guessed it, she owes Griffin a favor. While in the process of scouting, Ben and Griffin are interrupted by Griffin's younger sister, Melissa, played by Sierra Bravo. She says that she wants in on whatever he's plotting, but Griffin declines her offer. So now that they have their team, all that's left is to ask them to join their mission.
Nope, I can have no part in criminal mischief.
That's what my parole officer says.
Okay, that's about what I expected. But after a heartfelt speech,
Nope.
yep, still about what you'd expect. But Griffin pulls his trump card saying that he's helped all of them out previously. He got Savannah a commercial gig, he got Amanda to be the hottest girl in school because he got the previous hottest girl in school's dad to be moved into a different state, and he gets Darren a never-ending supply of hair cream from Latvia. So after cashing in all of his favors,
Still nope.
yeah, I don't really know what Griffin expected. He's asking these people to commit robbery for free. Your favor isn't exactly worth 5 to 10 years of hard time. But just as they're leaving, Ben offers to give each member $25,000 each after the card is sold. And because there's nothing more persuaded than cold hard cash, they all instantly and unanimously agree. So that very night, they set their plan into motion. When Swindle leaves at 6 o'clock for his daily dinner break, Darren catapults Amanda onto the roof and she drops in through the skylight, disarming the alarm before it's fully set for the night. Ben, Griffin, and Amanda go to grab the card but only find an empty display case. Swindle just stole $1.2 million from you. He's not going to be stupid enough to leave that card out in the open. While they search for the card, Savannah and Darren go to buy the rest of the group a little more time. This is the scene where it becomes incredibly obvious that Swindle is actually just a dick. Firstly, I do think both the car and Swindle are in the wrong here, because although the walk sign is on, he's not on the crosswalk. Secondly, when Savannah goes to interview him, he pushes her out of his way and into a public fountain. If this movie doesn't end with Swindle getting Regina Georged, we riot. The next attempt to slow down Swindle is for Darren to attempt to steal his Mushu. Unfortunately for Darren, Swindle used to spend a lot of time playing blacktop basketball, and his grip strength is insane. I'm gonna power scale these two real quick. Darren pushed a car horizontally with his bare hands earlier. So the fact that Swindle is able to hold onto a bag of Chinese food with one hand against this guy probably means that Swindle is f***ing yoked under that leather jacket. You should probably stop going after this guy before he just punches you into the f***ing sun. Savannah does have one final plan to slow down Swindle, pretending to be a blind, disabled nun who needs help getting back to church. While Savannah does that, Darren goes to give the rest of the gang a warning that Savannah won't be able to buy them much more time.
You scared me. I thought you were a burglar.
I am a burglar, and so are you. We're all burglars.
He's actually very right about that, because rather than take Savannah to the church, he sends her down a hill and lets gravity take her to her destination. I hope he realizes that if she died, this would be considered manslaughter. The group considers themselves failures and leaves before Swindle comes back, but Ben accidentally finds the card on his way out. But this short delay causes the group to get stuck inside the building with Swindle. They do their best to hide and sneak around without getting caught, but just as things are getting tight, Swindle receives a call. The caller is Anton Lefebvre, a wealthy businessman who invites Swindle to auction off his card at the very fancy Lakeshore Hotel. This is where Griffin hatches his master plan and puts the card back, to the shock of the rest of the group. The group narrowly escapes as the alarm is randomly disabled, only to discover it was disarmed by none other than Melissa. Griffin thanks her, but still says that she's not joining the team, until she threatens to snitch to their parents. So Game recognizes Game, and Griffin lets Melissa join the team because she has balls the size of a dwarf planet. On the way to the next location, everyone questions why Griffin put the card back. Griffin explains that he needs Swindle to hand over the card, or else Ben and Griffin would become the prime suspects of burglary. So this is the beginning of the new plan. Griffin drops off Amanda at Eddie's house. Eddie is the super geek from earlier in the film who really wants to get laid by Amanda. Their plan is for Amanda to borrow something valuable from Eddie. This will be important later. A proverbial mystery mouse tool, if you will. While geeking out over his real metal sword, he ends up knocking over Amanda and breaking her glasses. No wonder you can't get laid, you jackass, you almost killed her! Amanda tries to no avail to get her glasses to work, but since she's under the impression that no one is listening, she begins to geek out over Eddie's entire collection. But she's unaware that the entire group can still see and hear her geek out over Eddie's impressive collection of pop culture paraphernalia. Kinda unrelated, but Ben is definitely rocking a stiffy during this. Amanda's search for a small and valuable item ends when she finds a red-haired Captain Cybertor, a doll that was produced as a factory mistake and is worth upwards of $80,000. But in return for letting her borrow the doll for the weekend, Eddie requests a date with Amanda, which she begrudgingly agrees to. When Amanda returns to the mystery mobile, the group reveals that they could still hear and see everything that Amanda just did, and she says that if they tell anyone, she will hurt them in ways that haven't even been invented yet. You know, for most people that's probably a wildly attractive offer coming from Ariana Grande. Amanda doesn't want anyone to know her geeky secret, as she used to be Mandy the Mutant, and worked very hard and presumably paid a lot of money to become hot. The next scene is a quick and classic heist montage scene that will become more relevant and understandable as the movie continues. Our characters begin their preparations by learning how to act, making disguises, printing 10,000 copies of whatever the this is, and doing more flips than the live-action Kim Possible movie. After the montage is finished, the big day comes along and everyone rolls out and puts their plan into action. The first step of their plan is getting a room in the hotel for their base of operations. They put reservations under Swindle's name and put it on his card as well. Good for you. That guy. Ben is having doubts about his ability to pull off their plan, which is further reinforced by the fact that his dad is also there to present his new machine at the snake pit. Bro must be scared of a bag because he's really about to give up $1.2 million for a little bit of fear. Welcome to home base. The group rented the second most expensive room in the hotel. This is where everything gets started and where everything will end. I just like this movie. Is that a crime now? Melissa sets up surveillance on Lefebvre and Swindle. Amanda pretends to be a spa attendant so that she can make a reconstruction of Lefebvre's face, and more specifically that massive schnoz. After Darren gets some more of the best dialogue in the film,
It's showtime!
I'm exfoliating!
Swindle shows up and it's back on for Savannah and Darren. They pretend to be two clueless German kids who are trying to sell the red-haired Captain Cybertor to Lefebvre. They ask Swindle if he knows anything about the doll, and because he's a little short dick bitch, he lies and said the red-haired ones are worth nothing, while the blue-haired ones are worth thousands. So Swindle buys the doll off Savannah for a mere $10, thinking he won that interaction. I also want to take a moment to address the fact that Swindle has now come into contact with Savannah and Darren 3 times each, and has yet to recognize that they're the same person every time. And although you can view it as a plot hole, I think it's a very conscious character decision for Swindle. Swindle isn't someone who would bother remembering the name, face, or voice of anyone he deems less important than himself. And to him, no one is more important than himself. I don't think this is the writers making a dumb mistake or oversight. I think it's the writers making Swindle a much more in-depth character. Am I thinking about this too hard? Maybe. In fact, probably. They may not have intentionally written this, but I do want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they did. Swindle, none the wiser to the group's interference, checks into the hotel only to find that his room has now been moved to le basement, much to his dismay. The next phase of the plan consists of Griffin getting disguised to look like Lefebvre and meeting up with Swindle, but not before Melissa nearly throttles Swindle to death in an elevator. I mean, yeah, this guy, but you're gonna get blood on the card if you keep this up, then it won't be worth shit. This goes on for longer than a minute, by the way. Alright, I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of up. Do it again. After Swindle nearly dies of blunt force trauma, he meets up with Griffin disguised as Lefebvre at the spa. He is then subjected to even more blunt force trauma by this overly aggressive masseuse. At the same time, Amanda is leaving for her next mission, and Lefebvre has left his hotel room earlier than expected, which leaves the group in quite the pickle. So Savannah and Darren go to stall him by pretending to be in a lover's quarrel. Gibby and Sam shippers must be having a field day with this movie. Back at the spa, Swindle is getting the most violent back shots of his life, and Griffin plants another seed in Swindle's head about the doll. He says that there's a rich investor named Ivan Volkov who has been searching for a red-haired Captain Cybertor doll for years, but every seller that he's ever lined up for him has backed out of the deal. But while trying to convince Swindle of his deception, his makeup begins to melt and he has to make a quick exit. And now that Griffin is done committing impersonation, Savannah and Darren settle their lovers' quarrel and get to work elsewhere. Amanda then begins to do miscellaneous Mission Impossible for her next job. This leaves Ben as the only person who has still yet to be useful, and he takes the stage as the world's most conspicuous pool boy. While leaving the spa, Swindle runs into the Russians that Griffin mentioned earlier and makes a deal to sell the red-haired doll to Ivan. Unfortunately for him, Amanda's already come in and out of his room to make the switch on the red-haired Captain Cybertor doll, leaving Swindle none the wiser to the fact that he just sold a piece of junk to a man who could snap him in half like a Kit Kat bar. But luckily for him, Ivan is a man of trust and honor and assumes that the red-haired Captain Cybertor is in the box like he said it would be. So he makes the swap and Swindle runs off with his money. But not before running into Ben, who was distracted by his father's presence at the pool. This startles Ben and he runs off, dropping his room card. Swindle comes to check out the room but finds it to be more empty than a Sears department store in 2015. But after walking out onto the patio, he finds the entire group waiting for them, as this was their plan the entire time. Now that Griffin has the red-haired captain in his possession, he proposes an offer to Swindle. Swindle can either hand over the baseball card and get the red-haired doll, or he can keep the baseball card and get crushed to death by the angry Russian man in the hotel lobby. Swindle lunges at Griffin, prompting them to play the world's most expensive game of monkey in the middle, until Ben decides to get a little too fancy with it and he throws the doll over the balcony where it lands on a wedding cake. Here's where it becomes a full sprint to see who can get to the doll first. Well, after they get out of this elevator. Can't play it for obvious copyright reasons, but the elevator is playing a stripped down version of Call Me Maybe, and that is actually hilarious. Especially since I haven't heard this song since like 2014. Now that everyone is back on the ground floor, the chase can really begin. During this, the Snake Pit event is being held. Swindle attempts to cut through the event, but in return he gets his gut punched, his hair cut, and his pants removed. But after the chase continues, it seems like an investor is concerningly interested in the destructive power of the I Got It. The chase continues through the hotel kitchen and back upstairs through a wedding venue that Swindle locks the kids out of. Swindle actually looks coked out with his hair being cut while he's covered in flour and missing pants. This isn't Newark, New Jersey, man. You can't just walk around like that. At this point, Griffin hijacks the wedding in an attempt to get Swindle away from the doll. Just as it's getting cut close, Savannah hops up on stage and we get a Jeanette McCurdy and Noah Monk rendition of Call Me Maybe. And it makes me feel like my insides are in the wrong order. You know how people make a joke about a time traveler going back in time and moving a chair, and then it changes something that's super specific but ultimately unimportant? That's what this song is. But after the bride notices that the original cake topper has been replaced with the red-haired Captain Cybertor doll, we're officially caught up to the start of the movie. I guess it's good that people are making the best out of a bad situation, but I still find it very odd that not one person has questioned any of the weird things that are happening during this wedding. This nigga has a mysterious white powder on his face and a complete lack of pants, and no one questions it at all. But the only person who manages to keep it calm and collected, of course, is Griffin. Although maybe he should have been taking it a bit more seriously because Swindle manages to grab the doll before he does. So they chase Swindle out into the lobby, though because Swindle is a self-centered, narcissistic, conceited he gloats for so long that Ivan ends up opening the very door that he's standing in front of, knocking the doll right out of his hands. So at last he's forced to hand over the card or get beat up like the home run punching bag in Super Smash Bros. After handing over the card, Swindle quickly runs off after Ivan threatens to kill him. But then it's revealed that Ivan is actually Savannah's father and acting coach. This actually wraps up a good amount of plot holes I was thinking about. Firstly, I thought it was weird that this random Russian guy just happened to be here and wanted that specific doll. I also thought it was weird that they planned on selling a doll that didn't belong to them, and it's because they never intended to sell the doll. In all honesty, I think they did this twist pretty well. After that's settled, Griffin then reveals that he and Ben are the two true owners of the Honus Wagner card, and Lefebvre lets them both into the auction. While running for his life, Swindle runs into a busboy and breaks open the suitcase, revealing the 60,000 copies of his face that Melissa printed out during the montage. He's also handed a $35,000 bill for the room and all the service ordered by our main characters. The next day at school, the group gets their payouts of $25,000 each. Ben then reveals that he actually ended up never needing the money because his dad sold thousands of iGottits to police stations around the world. Oh boy, now committing police brutality will be even easier. You know, when I said that as a joke earlier in the movie, it was not a suggestion. When asked what he did with the rest of the money, Ben answers with the following. The first thing he did was send the hotel couple on a honeymoon since they crashed their wedding. The next thing he did was buy some nerd which I respect. If I got $1.2 million in an afternoon, I would probably buy a Master Sword. I already have a Master Sword, I just would buy one that's actually sharp. That would be justified, right? That's a good way to spend money, I think. The last thing that Ben says he'll be spending the money on is all of their college tuitions. But that still leaves him with quite a sum of money, so the group asks him what he'll do next, to which he replies he wants to use the money to stop more swindlers. This is when this random girl shows up at a high school requesting to speak to Griffin about her stolen bird. So after one more group shot, our characters walk off into the sunset and we get a sequel tease. Which of course is a little unfortunate because as much as I believe that this movie deserved a sequel, we already know it never actually got one. Unrelated tangent, I recently watched the 2015 movie Focus with my partner. It's another swindle slash heist style movie, and this is a spoiler, so skip like 10 seconds ahead if you care about this movie that came out 8 years ago. But my first guess was that the bad guy was the father of Will Smith's character because it's the plot twist in this movie, and that actually ended up being the plot twist at the end of the movie. That has nothing to do with Swindle, but I think it's funny that this movie had the same twist as Focus, even though this movie came out 2 years earlier. Also, I would say that Swindle is debatedly better than Focus too, so there's that, but onto the review. Firstly, this movie is funny as hell because it understands the type of humor that it's going for. I guarantee you that if you guys like the type of jokes that I make, you'll enjoy this movie. It never takes itself too seriously for a second, and I think the writers understand not only the characters they're writing, but the bonds between the characters. Pretty much any scene between Dara and Savannah is a banger, but I guess that's that latent HiKeiLoKei chemistry that they probably still have all these years later. You can also tell that this movie doesn't take itself too seriously because a 16-year-old guy can push a car because he's tall and muscular, and that's it. I also genuinely think it did set a tone for this movie. This is the moment where you're like, oh, okay, I don't have to think about this movie too hard anymore. I also think that nothing nearly as outlandish as that happens again, which is for the better too. I also very much enjoy the editing for this movie. The title cards are a lot of fun, and they do a great job of not only cutting from scene to scene, but they do a pretty good job of encapsulating how cheesy and fun a Nickelodeon heist movie should be. The music is also very solid too. It's really well themed, which is like the highest praise I can give for a kid's heist movie. Like obviously you still got those random 2010s TV preppy rock songs, but for the most part the soundtrack is really good. I really like the characters, but Savannah is by far the weakest in terms of likability. She also kind of ends up being overshadowed by Darren a lot of the time. I get that it's his character arc to become an actor, but because of this, Savannah really doesn't get a lot of strong character moments herself, and the strong character moments she has are either going to be less interesting or less impactful than Darren's moments. This movie is also extremely campy too and requires a good amount of suspension of disbelief. For example, the fact that no one at the wedding questioned the fact that a dude without pants was the star relative of the wedding. Not one person spoke up and said, hey, who the f is that guy? And not one person noticed the wedding topper was wrong at the wedding or during that entire chase scene. A lot of people who reviewed this movie negatively on IMDb gave it a low score because it wasn't as good as the book, and honestly, I don't think that's fair. This is not a 1 out of 10 movie just because it's not as good as the book or not the same as the book. Probably half the people or more who watched the movie probably didn't even read the book, myself included. So for the critical score, I'm gonna give this movie a 7 out of 10. I think that's fair. I don't think the movie is perfect. It's a little above average, but it's very entertaining, very funny, and the story is pretty tight. And the fun story, I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. I really like it. It's fun for all ages. I like the humor. It aged really well, which isn't something you can say for a lot of TV specials that aired more than 10 years ago. I talked about Fred last week, and that movie got horribly dated, mostly because of the topical references and the pop music that they used 4 times in the movie. So good job to the writers of this movie. You didn't fill your movie with toilet humor and topical memes. Good job. Thank you all for watching the video. As always, remember to like the video because 1 liked video is actually 1 Honus Wagner baseball card, and I will distribute them equally among the Squishmallows after 1 week's time. Thank you so much to my amazing patrons, and as usual, consider supporting me there. Also considering sharing the content and subscribing to the content. We need to get as many people on the HiKeiLoKei heist train as possible. Me and the gang are gonna go commit this exact heist, but first we need to go find a super valuable baseball card. So I'm gonna get on that. Wait, really? How come you didn't tell me this? You know what? That's a fair point.